Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Beyond the Case, which is a podcast where global leaders from Harvard Business School's OPM community join in a personal capacity and they share the real decisions, failures, and mental models that go behind building enduring companies. My guest today is Sam Patel. And a very interesting story is Sam was the first person who encouraged me to go ahead with this podcast. So I'm very grateful to him for that. His words of confidence meant a lot to me. And I think one of the biggest reasons why this podcast exists today. Sam, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. I mean, it's amazing to see an idea that you had and that we kind of talked about. And you said, "What are your thoughts?" And I mean, look at you now. You have this entire podcast well built. You've had numerous amazing leaders on it, and I just really honored to be one of the guests on your podcast. And can't wait for this to continue to grow because it will. And I'm very excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Do you want to introduce yourself for the listeners and tell us about what you do as well?
Sure. Yeah. So once again, my name is Sam Patel. I'm based in Chicago here in the United States. And my background is in medicine and business entrepreneurship. So I have an MD and MBA, have utilized both of those degrees to kind of facilitate building practices, medical clinics, mainly in wellness, so weight loss, hormones, and aesthetics, the fun side of the industry. And I've kind of taken that knowledge and grown multiple different businesses and practices, then went into the tech industry and built a software that's more healthcare related as well. So I've kind of, started out in the healthcare field. And although I still am very much involved in it, now have gravitated more on the entrepreneurship and software side of the business. So it's been a very unique journey and learning along the way. And it's been really gratifying to do what I'm doing. And once again, just getting started.
Amazing, Sam. When did you first realize that you were a builder at heart?
That's a great question. I think, you know, I'm a first generation. I was born in Florida here in the United States. My parents immigrated here in the 80s. And I think I was just around builders. My parents were both builders themselves. They came and built literally something out of nothing. The whole American dream story. They came and built convenience stores, real estate plazas. And from there, I just was immersed in it. I think the luxury that I had was that I was able to learn entrepreneurship at a very early age because I don't want to say forced into it, but more or less I was. I was forced into kind of learning from my parents, seeing it when my friends were going and hanging out at the beach. I was at their stores learning the business from how to train team members, from how to sweep the floors to how to run the cash register. And so I think from the early onset, I was kind of just really brought up to be a builder of businesses. And I thought I was never going to do any of that. I thought I was going to go into healthcare and work for a hospital and kind of just leave that world behind. But it's hard to leave something that you have been brought up in. And really, the foundation of it has been, of course, my youth. So building things has been something that I was always immersed into. And here I am doing it, decades later after seeing my parents do it.
Incredible, Sam. Could you walk us through what your journey looked like once you graduated? Did you work a job at first or did you start out
Sure.
building businesses?
Yeah, no, great. Great question. I love kind of reflecting on the journey because it's something that we always have to kind of go back and see where we were and how far have we come and what challenges we had. And, my career started really after school. After I went to Purdue University for my undergraduate here in the Midwest. And then from there went to med school with some of my best friends from college, met my wife in college, went to med school with her. And then from there, we realized, okay, maybe I'm going to go and build my own practice. Early on, I had a really great relationship during my med school years with one of my professors. He owned multiple different clinics, and I really liked it. I really liked his sort of ability to manage his own business, not having to be an employee, kind of being the boss, and mainly being able to build a business that was under his vision rather than having to follow someone else's vision. So that really provoked me and encouraged me to build my own practice. He helped me do that. He was able to be my mentor and help guide me into building my first practice. And it was scary. I had to make a lot of sacrifices and saying, hey, maybe I don't go the traditional medicine route and go be a doctor and go in a hospital and go do the traditional. Maybe I'm going to go build my own medical practice and start there. So that's really kind of where my journey started. It was honestly by mistake. I did not think that I was going to do this. I did not have this in my plan. I did not have this in my sort of dream. I think I just realized that I couldn't escape my younger years of, as you mentioned, being a builder. So, full circle, I said, you know what, maybe this feels comfortable. And so that's sort of where that journey began.
And Sam, how did your parents react to this? Because immigrants are usually a little conservative, but your parents were entrepreneurs, so they have that
You know,
aggressive side of growth.
Yeah, no, that's such a funny story as well. I think my parents were scared. They were like, "No, we sent you to school and we paid for your education. We made all this sacrifice. You have to follow the traditional route. You have to go be a cardiologist." And listen, they were scared. They were questioning, and they were like, "No, you're not supposed to do this. It's too much risk. Go do what you're supposed to do in terms of follow the path." But I think everyone follows the path, right? And the path is amazing. But the true entrepreneurs, they don't go where everyone's going. They go where people don't go. They go and venture into territory into where no one has sort of ventured into. That's what entrepreneurship is, going into the darkness, going to where there's no light, going against the current. And so I think inherently, of course, they were going to have their sort of fear, or I would say their worries with me going against the path of medicine. But they were supportive, and I think as they saw it manifest, they said, you did the right thing, and I think they supported the entrepreneurship, and they meant well. I think entrepreneurship in their world had a lot of risk. They were coming into the country and building something with no idea of whether it would pan out. So they saw it from their perspective. But I think, the grit and the grind and sort of the risk taking abilities that they taught me, it panned out. So yes, they invested in my education, but they also invested in my mindset of an entrepreneur. So I think that's why they ended up becoming warming up to the idea.
Absolutely. And I guess they also started in the country with no network of their own, right? They had to build that network, whereas, anyone who's born in the country is probably inheriting or building a network as they grow up. So
This
they've
is
had it
such
so
an
much harder.
important, absolutely. This is such an important concept that you bring up. So, and is that networking? I think that in today's world, it's not just about education. It's not just about having lots of money on hand or capital. It's about literally who you know. And I didn't actually fully understand that until actually the Harvard OPM program. I realized in today's world, you can get to $1 million, $5 million, maybe even $10 million on your own. You can do it with hard work. You can do it with limited resources, and you can really, really scale to that number. But I would say to get beyond that, to get beyond the 10 million, to go to the 100 to 500 million, uh, yes, you can do it on your own, but it's so much easier to do it when you have a powerful network. So you're absolutely correct. Having a network is something that is necessary, and it's required in order to scale quickly and to get to your end destination as fast as possible. And without a network in today's world, I think it's just much harder to go down that path. And my parents didn't have that network. And I think that's been one of my biggest focuses now, is to continue to build networks and learn from other people and try to get to places faster because they have the answers rather than me trying to do it on my own.
Right. For your first business, did you raise capital? Did you take a bank loan? Did you bootstrap? How do you go about that?
Yeah. So my first medical clinic that I built, I had a family loan. I was very fortunate to have family members help me. It was a $75,000 loan to help build my first practice. And that loan, we took it. And from there, we bootstrapped the entire way through. I was fortunate enough to reinvest, make good business decisions. I think a lot of the times we see early entrepreneurs, they make a lot of money up front and then they go spend it on careless things. I waited 8 years before I started to really enjoy life. I would reinvest, build another clinic, reinvest, build another clinic, and just kept doing that. And we lived very simple lives. We lived in an apartment. We didn't go on fancy vacations. We really saved a lot, as much as we could, and repaid our debt, repaid that family loan, and then reinvested. But I wanted to kind of keep everything as close to ourselves as possible. And I love the concept of investors. But the one thing with investors that I've learned just by seeing my other colleagues do it is, if you do it too early, you give up a lot. You give up a lot of opportunity, but also you give a lot of decisions up too, because now you can't do everything in your vision. When you invest in money, you invest in their decisions and their ideas also. And sometimes that may not align with your vision or your mission. And so that's really why, from the beginning, it's been my focus to kind of keep everything close, to invest in ourselves rather than invest in people coming and telling me what to do because they're writing me a check.
How old were you when you started your first clinic, and how old are you today?
Yeah. So I started when I was 30. 8 years later, which is today, I'm 38. I just turned
Mhm.
38 not too long ago. And so we started very early. The journey, started with us building that first practice and going from there. So, it feels like it's been only a couple years, but, here we are. It's been 8 years, but each year it's just trying to figure out what to do differently, what decisions to make, how to compound the growth. The first 4 to 5 years were difficult. I'll tell you that they were tough. There were moments where you feel like you're going to give up. There were moments where you question everything you're doing, moments where you have a lot of regrets, moments when you feel very poor. But I've realized by just watching other entrepreneurs, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It has to take everything with piece by piece chapters. You can't read it all in one night. You have to take it each year is a chapter of life. It's a chapter in your journey, and that's sort of what I've tried to realize every single moment over the 8 years.
Were you married when you started your first clinic?
Yes, that's exactly actually when I got married. I got married right. We were looking at the clinic right before, and then as soon as we got married, I was able to purchase the clinic. So that journey of my career has coincided with my journey of life with my partner and my wife as well. She is a physician also, so she went the traditional route of working in the hospital, and she's amazing at what she does. So we both kind of went to different forks of the road. I went towards the entrepreneur medical route. She went the traditional working in the hospital and providing amazing care as a hospitalist physician. But no, that same journey, took us in different ways, but we're still here, converged in the same concept. She has now joined my businesses actually. This year, she retired from hospital medicine and she has joined my ventures, which is quite nice to be a part of having her along with our journey now.
Sam, that's incredible and very inspiring. The fact that you were starting a new chapter in your life, which is marriage. And at that very moment, you had the audacity to also venture out by yourself, take the responsibility of a family loan. It's very incredible that you saw all those responsibilities through and came out emerging on the successful side. Um,
Thank you. No, it
looking,
was definitely
yeah,
definitely tough. I know there were the first. It sounds great when you look at it, kind of today, but of course, the first couple years, everything gets tested. Your personality gets tested, your mind gets tested, your relationships get tested, and but I think that's what resilience is. I think being resilient is literally necessary as an entrepreneur, and that's what makes entrepreneurship so beautiful is being resilient.
what did running and scaling seven-figure clinics teach you that no book or course could?
This is a beautiful question you're asking because I try to find all the answers in a textbook. I try to find all the answers in my degrees, my business degree. But I realized that the best way to be an entrepreneur is to be an entrepreneur. That's the only way to do it. You can't learn boxing. You can't learn soccer. You have to go and play it. You have to go and do it. You have to go and experience it. And that's how entrepreneurship is I've realized that the best way to learn is to actually go do it. And the best thing to learn from is failure. You have to fail. If you think about boxing as a sport, fighters, the way that they become better is by getting punched. They get punched and they say, ow, that really hurt. I don't want to get punched again. And they put their hand up. And that's similar to entrepreneurship. I learned that you can't read about this. You can't go and watch videos on this. You can certainly do these things to get inspired. You can go to universities like Harvard to be inspired, to learn how other people's have scaled. But the best way to actually learn is to do it. And I had to take a couple years to realize that because every single time you would read something and you would go try it and you would fail, you'd be like, oh my God, this is not working. I'm a failure. But those are just sort of frameworks, a template to learn from and to establish your story. And the best way to establish your own story is to write it yourself, to go actually experience it, not to try to read someone else's book and try to be their story. Everyone has their own unique story, and the only way to do it is to go physically write it. And so I learned very quickly that books and courses and other people's experiences are necessary, but what's even more necessary is to jump in and do it yourself and fail along the way.
Beautiful. How do you know when it's time to exit versus double down in a business?
I don't think that that comes easy. Everyone always asks, "What's the best time to do it?" And I think some of my friends who have children, I always ask them, "Hey, what's the best time to have kids?" And the response is, "There is no best time. You just kind of do it, right?" And I think that's very similar to kind of exiting because your business is kind of like your child in a sense. It's, "Hey, I'm going to send this kid off to another home, or I'm going to send this." You know, kid off to another, to an institution, a college, or I'm going to let them out of the house. And that's kind of what I would perhaps visualize with a business. It's your child. You've grown this thing. You've gone through the ups and downs. You're so close to it. And it's not supposed to be easy. And that decision's not supposed to be easy. But what I've learned is that if you see momentum changes, if you realize your passion is now kind of something else, that your passion is now to maybe give up this thing you've built and pursue another passion. That's what it was for me. When I built my clinics and I got to 12 locations with my partner, I started to kind of realize I had a passion for doing something else. And that, yes, I was excited about what we've done. I was proud about what we've done, but I didn't really care to do more of it. I mean, I could have, but I wouldn't have put my 100% into it. And that's when I realized maybe it's time that we exit this and go pursue our next journey, our next chapter, our next venture. And that's when I realized for me, it was when I had a passion for something else and my other passion wasn't at 100%, then it was the right time to move into another direction. And of course, kind of as you mentioned, having a network, learning from other people, understanding what did they do, what's the best way to move forward? Is it a certain number? Is it a financial number to cash out in? Or is it going to be, a, hey, we scale to this many locations or the industry starting to dip. So this is the best time to get rid of it. There's so many variables here. But for me, it was just passion. I didn't want to do something half assed. I didn't want to do anything with half confidence or half of my passion. I needed full amount of it. And so for me, I started to see a shift in my desire. And that shift in desire was what shifted me into moving from my clinical world of owning clinics to going into consulting and going into tech.
Amazing. Um, on this podcast, while there's many successful stories, the biggest learning curve comes from mistakes that we make, right? And that's what we try to touch on as well. So now that you've seen multiple businesses through, uh, could you reflect on some of the mistakes you made early on as a young entrepreneur and what you would maybe do differently today if you were starting out?
100%. I absolutely love this question. And I wish this question was asked to me 8 years ago because I would have realized. But hey, listen, you're asking now, and I appreciate it because if I were to kind of look at my younger self and say, hey, what failures or what things that I do wrong or what sort of things I wish I could have avoided. I listened to too many people. I think I was trying to have people help me make my decisions. I would ask other individuals, "Hey, should I go down being an entrepreneur?" And majority of the people said no. They said it's too high of a risk. And I doubted it because people said, "No, that's too much risk. Go and you'll make a good salary and you'll have retirement benefits. Just stick to the plan." And I think that that's what slowed me down. I think taking risks was something that was looked down upon by majority of the world, and that was the advice that I was given majority of the time: is don't take too many risks. Be careful. Do things that are very low risk. And being an entrepreneur, as you know, there's no such thing as low risk. Everything's high risk. And so I think that that advice slowed me down. That input slowed me down. And I realized I can't get advice from people that aren't going to be the people that I want to be. If I want to be here in life and they're in a different sort of chapter of life, how can I ask them for advice, right? How can I ask people that are making $100,000 a year, which is great? It's fantastic. How can I ask them how to be $100 million business? They won't have the advice for me. So their advice is going to be, hey, do this, do this, do this. But that advice is only going to get me to a certain amount of trajectory of success. So I realized go with your intuition, go with your gut, or find a network, as we mentioned earlier. Don't listen to everyone. My dad gave me really beautiful advice. And he said, Sam, listen to everyone's opinion, but make your own decision. Don't let those opinions make this decision for you. And that really kind of made me realize, listen to everyone. Everyone's ideas are great. But at the end of the day, it's still your decision. So that's the one big thing. The secondary thing was uh, make sure that you are taking calculated risks. I think that I was very scared to take risks, but I realized that risks are good if you calculate them, saying, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Always have a worst case scenario because we did have some failures along the way. I made some bad decisions. I made bad partnerships because they were entirely money focused. So be careful of the people you partner with. Make sure they have your same vision. Make sure they have the same goals in mind, and make sure that they can be trusted. Because that was the biggest thing that I wish I could have done differently. But in all honesty, I don't regret it. I think that these mistakes, these failures have molded me into the person I am. And I think it's required. But if I were to go back in time and to kind of speak to an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old entrepreneur today, I would tell them, don't be afraid to follow your heart, follow your dreams. Don't listen to everyone. Make your own decision. Don't be scared to fail, and make good partnerships, not bad ones.
Incredible. The fact that you've started multiple businesses, um, if you were to start another business, are there any patterns that you think you would recognize early on in a winning business today?
You know, I realized actually through the Harvard OPM program so far, I know we're just early in this program, but nonetheless, even in that little segment that we've had so far, it taught me something very important. Um, you know, Professor Das, as an example, and all these amazing professors, they did such a good job of keeping things very simple, kind of going down to the foundation of going to adjacent markets, increasing your competitive advantage. And what I've realized now is that when you build this sort of loyalty base of customers, bring them another product. There's no reason to go do something that, you aren't versed in, unless you are in your stage of your life where you're having fun, right? You've made so much money that you can go invest in a restaurant, you can go invest in a pet store or whatever it is, car wash, whatever you want to do, you can go have fun. But in the early stages of entrepreneurship, it's so much easier to just follow that advice from Harvard or from Professor Dawes, go into an adjacent market. And that's exactly what I did. I went from owning clinics to consulting medical clinics to building software for medical clinics. And as I look at my next ventures ahead, I'm going to stay within the same adjacencies. The whole marketplace where I feel comfortable. I have the knowledge, I have the influence, I have the key players, I have the key team members, so I can plug and play. And that's very similar to some of the cases that we learned about with, Osher and all these other cases where they found the critical team members and just kept duplicating their businesses because they stayed in the same scope. So that's the big thing now as I look sort of ahead in my serial entrepreneurship, as I build my, I guess, my empire going forward, I'm going to just continue to be in my adjacent markets because hey, why not? I have the infrastructure, I have the knowledge, and I am the expert. I'm not going to try to be an expert in any other markets.
What resistance did you face introducing innovation into a conservative industry like healthcare?
Yeah. Healthcare is difficult. You hit it right on the nail. It's conservative because healthcare is something that doesn't just involve yourself. It involves other people. It's their lives at stake. Their health is at stake. And so, for that reason, the industry is quite conservative. Other countries are a little bit more progressive. They're a little bit more risk taking, which is pretty cool to see. But here in the United States and North America, in majority of the global market, healthcare is very conservative. So I think when you're coming up with an idea, when you're coming up with something innovative, it's going to be met with a lot of resistance. It's going to be met with a lot of regulations. That's what we saw with the software that we're designing. And I think that the one big thing I realized is the power of influence. I have the opportunity of being a global speaker. I actually just finished my tour last weekend. I did over 60 events, over 150 lectures in over 7 countries. And all these different opportunities that we had, I realized that when you have a voice and you have influence and you have resources, that's all you need to create change. People are sometimes so scared of what is the industry going to say? What are my colleagues going to say? What are my leaders going to say? But instead, why don't you just go against the grain? Kind of going back to what I was talking about. You think Steve Jobs cared about what people were going to say? Do we think Elon Musk cared about what the world was going to say? No, they created things. Some of them failed, most of them succeeded, and they kind of got a lot of positive feedback and a lot of negative feedback. And as an entrepreneur and as an innovator and as a leader in the healthcare industry, more so in the wellness and aesthetic side, I know that everyone's not going to agree with me. And I know that the risk I take in creating new ideas is people putting them down. But any successful entrepreneur, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't listen to what the haters are going to say. They listen to what their vision is and they create vision rather than following it. And so that's sort of what I've taken a mindset of in the healthcare industry is don't be scared of what the traditional older style traditional thinkers are like. Listen to them. But once again, make your own decision. Just like my father said, is we have to kind of innovate, and innovation requires risk. Innovation requires going against what everyone thinks. And especially in healthcare, that is definitely the case.
You're a public speaker. You also host a podcast by yourself. Did I get that right?
I do. Yeah. I have a
Yes.
lot of people that my colleagues mainly, and sometimes, of course, conversations like this. It's something that I'm trying to do better at being on social media. It's something that over the last couple of years has been a very big focus of mine is trying to, instead of being on physical stages, being on a digital stage. So definitely the YouTube channel and the Instagram channel allowed me to do that.
Great. So, why do you believe that storytelling is so important in your vertical, in healthcare, especially?
Storytelling, I think, is the best form of marketing that there is today. Not everyone will understand a product. Not everyone will understand a service. Not everyone will understand even what your company does. But if you have a story behind your product, if you have a story behind your service, if you have a story behind your company, then people will be more receptive to that. So, I think it was on Shark Tank, Hershevek, one of the sharks on Shark Tank, he mentioned something, and I don't have this quote entirely perfected, but what I remember is he said, a good salesperson sells features. A better salesperson sells products, and an amazing salesperson sells emotion. And the only way you can sell emotion is by selling a story or by telling a story. If you tell a story, then people can say, I want that. I want to be that person. So in healthcare, as an example, medical weight loss, I can say, hey, I have a medication for that. That's boring. No one understands that. But if I tell someone, hey, I had a patient, his name was Tim. He had this amazing journey. He lost 100 pounds. He is now able to move faster. He's much healthier. He has less back pain. He's going to live longer. He can spend time with his kids. He can play soccer with them. And the way that we got him there is by using this medication. Now it's a entirely different emotion because now I painted this picture that someone can say, I want to be like Tim. And the way that we can be like Tim is by using the medication. But if we say, hey, I have a medication for that, that sounds boring. That sounds scary. That doesn't sound exciting. So storytelling is necessary for your business. Storytelling is necessary for your products and for your services. And I believe storytelling is what makes us as humans human. If you think about well before social media, well before technology, 200, 300, 400 years ago, what did people do? They told stories. They sat around dinner, they sat around the fire, they sat around together eating and they told stories and that's how they did business. And that has changed. Now it's so big on, hey, let me run an ad. Let me run an ad. Let me, put social media ads or SEO. But even with those things, we have to tell a story. And the best way to do that is to talk about your customers and talk about how your service or your company or your product transforms businesses. As you remember from Harvard, how can we make them the hero? And that's truly about storytelling.
Sam, do you stand out when it comes to storytelling in your family, or is this a trait you've inherited from a parent? And at what age did you recognize that this is a skill set you have which you could leverage?
I didn't really think about this until right now. You mentioned, or just asked, is it something that I developed from my parents or my family? And in all honesty, I think so. I think now that you're asking and I'm reflecting very quickly, and maybe perhaps you can resonate with this, or maybe any Asian or South Asian family could. Every day dinner, your parents tell the same story of how they came to the country, and your grandma or your grandpa would tell the same story 100 times as you're growing up, and you never want to say, "Hey, you told me this story," because you listen out of respect. And when you realize the stories they tell you, it's not about, "Hey, we came here and we were successful." They talk about it in vivid detail. We came on a boat, we landed in New Jersey, we lived in the streets for a couple days. We had the traditional story of $7 in their pocket. Like every immigrant had $7 exactly. And as they come in, they're trying to figure out, where to work. They're working for 50 cents. It's the vivid details of the story that we have to repetitively listen to. But here I am being a storyteller of my own. So, and you make a really good point. I do think actually that the storytelling capabilities have come from our backgrounds, our cultures, our parents. And I think that maybe this is across all different cultures and all different ethnicities. But I know with the Indian culture specifically, I mean, we're huge about telling stories. We're huge about, gossiping and, of course, when you're sitting at a dinner or you're sitting at a function, what do we do? We talk about stories, and we tell stories. And I definitely think it is a cultural and family concept that has kind of made me into that today.
I have one last question around your entrepreneurial journey and some takeaways before we move on to OPM. Talk to me about some blind spots you might see that founders have today when they come to you for help.
Yeah. So, as a consultant today, I have now the great honor and pleasure of going from being an entrepreneur, and I still am, but helping other entrepreneurs. I have 2,500 entrepreneurs that I help across 12 countries today, and that number grows each month. And a lot of what I'm learning now is I'm starting to teach them the basics, right? A lot of the things I learned from Harvard OPN, I'm also manifesting in my advice. But some of the blind spots are actually quite simple that business owners, especially in healthcare, they don't even know the simple things of how to read a P&L, how to read a balance sheet, how to understand their finances. And that is a huge blind spot because how can we understand how to grow, how to improve year after year or quarter after quarter if we don't even understand the basics, the basic numbers? Are we financially growing well? Is this a good investment? Should I write this off or write that off? What's depreciating? What isn't depreciating? What should we do in terms of investing in our team members? All of these things are massive blind spots that I see today. And I don't think that's just in healthcare. I think that's industry wide. I think that m- across multiple industries, I see that people just hire an accountant and they let the accountant make all the decisions. We, as entrepreneurs and business owners, have to understand our financials just as good as our accountant. An accountant's job is to balance the books and submit taxes and to write off as much as they can. But their job isn't to sit and make your business decisions and look at your financials. Accountant only gets involved once a year. You should be looking at your P&Ls and your financials and your statements every month. And that is a massive blind spot that I see. And I would say the secondary thing is business owners don't understand the power of having very, very well defined teams, taking care of their team members. They just hire someone with a salary and say, get to work. No, our team members are the life and blood of our organizations. Without them, nothing succeeds. And without them, we sure as hell can't scale. So what I see is that massive blind spot is that people don't understand how it looks like to take care of your team members, how to appreciate your team members, how to compensate them fairly, but also how to care for them, how to create psychological safety in an organization. It's so important to do this. It's one thing that I am now focusing on as we get into 2026 is this very concept. And I realized that without people, without understanding your numbers, it's so difficult to do anything. Those two simple foundational principles are massive blind spots. And that's been a huge focus of mine as I mentor other entrepreneurs today.
Wonderful. Everyone speaks about DAS on the podcast, but this week, in the last 3 days, 3 interviews that I've done, all three of them have spoken about psychological safety, including you.
Right.
It's just a new
Yeah,
trend which is coming up, I feel.
it's a huge thing. I read the book from the professor at Harvard that wrote it. It was something that I heard so many times throughout our professors speaking about it. And I realized it was such a simple concept, but no one does it. No one understands it. And in healthcare, especially in healthcare, it could be detrimental. Specifically, if you have a nurse that is too scared to speak up to the doctor, that could be devastating for patient care. So the nurse and the technicians and all the administrators have to have confidence and feel safe bringing up situations and not feel scared by the physician or by the hospital director. And so even on a healthcare level, but yes, I mean, psychological safety is something that I've been very much now focusing on as we go into the following year.
Talking about OPM, at what point did you recognize that there's a program like
Mm.
OPM, and what
Yeah.
motivated you to apply?
You know, I've been wanting to for the past 3, 4 years go back to school in the sense of not going and learning it through a textbook, by going and learning from other people, learning from people that have done it multiple times, that have scaled, that have had the success that I want to have. And I figured the best way to obtain that is to go be around them, to go create that network, like we talked about earlier. And I also realized that the best way to go do that is to go enroll in a program. But the hardest part was committing to it. And so I realized when, I was applying for it, I said, hey, let me just take a chance and see if this is something that I would even be accepted into, capable of doing, if I could even mentally invest my time, of course, financially invest our time. The hardest part wasn't the financial investment. The hardest part was leaving our organization for that much time, going on campus and literally falling off the grid to focus on the program. That was the hardest piece. But I realized that this program was prestigious. This program was well reputable. And if there was any chance that I had to go from where I am now to where I want to be, it was going to be necessary for me to enroll in this program. Without doing so, it would it would be difficult to get where I want to go to. I would be making more mistakes and I would be burning more time. And time is the one thing we cannot purchase. We only have a certain amount of time on this earth. We can't buy more of it. So I realized the best way to save time, the best way to make less mistakes, and the best way to network is to go to Harvard OPM. And that's really what was sort of the rate limiting step to push me over to making and committing myself to the program.
You've already spoken about, DAS and make your customer a hero, psychological safety as well, some concepts that we took back from the OPM program. Outside of that, I'm wondering if there's been a moment from the classroom or a framework or a case that we discussed which really stuck with you.
Absolutely. I think all of the professors were brilliant. I think every single one of them taught me something that was powerful and that I'm implementing in the year to come. And every single one of them, I am very excited to see again here when we go back next year. But I would say the things that stand out the most, and it's probably across the board, but I would say that the two things that stand out the most was the first case that we did, which was the friendly fire case. And of course, the Toyota case. And then lastly, the Oberoi case. These three cases had amazing teaching moments. The first with friendly fire, with of course how the Army and the Air Force had some sort of miscommunication, errors in communication, and how one was fast moving and one was slow movers. That is very much how my organization is. My sellers and my sales team are go, 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 fast, 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 deals, deals, deals. And my customer support and my development team, they move slower because they have to test things and it takes a little bit more time and they have to move with quality. They can't move as quick as the sales team. And these two teams don't communicate well, but now we're changing that. So that case really showed me how we need to differentiate the two and how we have to basically have a good communication stream between the teams that move fast and the teams that move slow. Moving on to the Toyota case, which was such a critical foundational teaching case for me, which was it's okay to make mistakes and we need to actually pull the cord when things go wrong. And I have immediately implemented that into our actual companies, is saying if something is happening and you need help, don't be scared. And that kind of ties into the psychological safety component of don't be scared, promote you to talk. It's okay to make mistakes. Pull the cord when things aren't going right so we can help you. And then lastly, the Oberoi case with how the attention to detail of making extraordinary outcomes from unextraordinary or ordinary people, I should say. That concept of creating extraordinary with ordinary, that whole philosophy, oh, really, really hit home for me of how we can take care of our customers, appreciate them, the little tiny details of giving them a gift or whatever it may be. The Empower program that Oberoi Group did with giving their employees or their team members the opportunity to spend $25, $30 for each of the guests to make their day a little bit special. These tiny little details have had massive transformative decisions for myself. So these three are the ones that truly stand out amongst all of the rest that we could talk for days on how that's going to, look like for each case. But these three have really been the foundation for what I'm doing in the year to come.
That was very powerful. I just had a refresher on a lot of the cases from OPM, so I appreciate that response from you. Um, has there been a book which has influenced you or changed the way you think?
Yes. Measure What Matters. It's an OKR book, and I am almost done with it now. It, oh my God, it's entirely transformational. I've read a lot of books since being back. I've been taking a lot of flights, so I do the audio and I read along the way. But this one, Measure What Matters, it is such a good book. And the author of this book has served to be a consultant for Google, for other organizations to help build their OKRs, their objective key results. And my big initiative, I'm actually launching it on January 12th. I'm launching our OKRs in our company. We've never had OKRs. I didn't even know what OKRs really were until going to Harvard OPM. And now I've read this book. I've designed our own OKRs. I've done it with my team involved. And this book single handedly is probably going to set us up for an entirely different success. And it's a book that everyone, not recommendation, requirement. Every entrepreneur should be required to read this book.
Sam, you were, like I mentioned before, you were one of the first people to believe in the concept of this podcast, Beyond the Case. What made the idea of talking to other business leaders resonate with you?
Two things. One, I think that every single person that has come through OPM and that we have had the great honor of building connections with, building that network is exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what this podcast is doing, is allowing ourselves to truly establish that powerful, intimate network of brilliant entrepreneurs worldwide, industry wide. And that's exactly what this is doing. It's allowing for everyone to come in and for you to allow for people to connect with each other's stories, which is my second point, storytelling. We're all here coming on your podcast, and you're allowing us to tell our stories and to tell our stories, the ups, the downs, the stories that are ahead of us, the stories that we had before. And this storytelling that we've just talked about is exactly what this podcast allows us to do, is build a network through storytelling. And that is going to allow us to really contribute back to the community of entrepreneurship and the Harvard OPM community that's going to continue to grow. And that's why I loved what you were going to do, because storytelling and networking is two things that have made me who I am today. Without that, I would not be who I am. And when you kind of created this vision, it was immediately attractive because that, I think, is we don't have enough of that in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, usually people are very competitive. They don't want to tell their secrets. They don't want to tell what they've done, their sort of, objectives and how they've accomplished them, their trade secrets, their plans, their strategy. Now you're kind of basically saying, you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's all help each other, because that's what the Harvard OPM group has done. And now you are going once again beyond the case and going beyond what OPM is, allowing us to have a voice through storytelling and through networking. And that's what I love about what you're doing. And I cannot wait for this to continue to grow. And once again, I appreciate being a part of it.
The honor's mine. Thank you for the kind words. Once you wake up, what do the first 90 minutes of your day look like? Walk us through your morning routine.
Sure. That's changed a lot over this year alone. I think in the beginning, actually prior to OPM, prior to coming to Harvard and after going to Harvard, it's two different people. Prior to going to Harvard, honestly, I was all over the place. I would wake up and the first thing I would check is my phone. I would read on my emails, I'd reply to my text messages, and I would kind of already be stimulated. And it was a really bad way to start. When I came to Harvard OPM, and what Harvard OPM taught me, and what now I do every single day is I wake up I learn, I educate myself. I have a breakfast, which before I didn't even have breakfast properly. But Harvard OPM kind of made you into a conditioned person. It was a routine. And so now today I wake up and I learn. I read articles. I subscribe to the Harvard Business Review. So I have those magazines come in. I'm reading all these books. So the first thing I do is I read. I learn, I listen. I'm actually been listening to your podcast. So I listen to the other colleagues that have been on there and kind of get my mind stimulated. And then I go into work and then I read my emails and go from there. Investing in yourself early on in the day, I've learned is much easier than trying to do it at the end of the day because then something comes up, a meeting, an emergency, a crisis, or you're just tired because at the end of the day, you don't have energy, you're gone. Energy's done. So investing in yourself in the first hour of the day, I've learned is probably the most transformational thing that you can do as an entrepreneur and just as a person is taking care of yourself. It's okay to invest in yourself. If you invest in yourself, your company is going to benefit from it. If you take care of yourself and you educate yourself and you take care of your body and you actually eat properly, guess what's going to happen? Your company is going to benefit from that. And it took me going to Harvard OPM to realize that today, which is what has been the true transformational thing for me now.
How do you personally manage pressure when building at such great speed?
I think that's a learning process that you get better at each day. But the biggest thing that I've learned with dealing with pressure is to ask for help. As an entrepreneur, you probably know this as well. You feel like you're alone. You feel like you're a lone soldier, a lone warrior fighting a battle with no help on your side. And as entrepreneurs, I think that we have to realize we have directors, we have executives, we have other talented managers and your team members, and they will help you. They are very powerful assets for you. Take advantage of that. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to delegate. It's okay to not have to do everything by yourself. And I truly believe that when we came to Harvard OPM, all of us connected so well because we all are like this. We all are wearing the burden and suffering every single day with all the decisions and financial obligations. But I think that when people are tired and when people are needing help and when people are uh, basically wanting to overcome challenges, you don't need to do it alone. You have your team. Ask for help, delegate, trust them. If you give them a responsibility and they see that, you'll get so much opportunity out of them. And the next thing is don't think that everyone's going to do it just like you. No one's going to be you. You're always going to love the company the most. You're always going to put in the most amount of effort. You're always going to be 100% employee. But if your team members can be 80%, 75% of your passion and your vision, that's still really good. And you can't expect them to be like you. So ask for help and have expectations that make a sense in terms of what you're expecting from them.
Such a valid point. I had a conversation with Michael Parker 2 nights ago. He spoke about entrepreneurial burnout and mental health, and I'm very excited to work on releasing that episode. Definitely send that to you as well. I think a lot of what you said resonates with what he mentioned as well.
It's so
Um,
important. We don't
yeah,
take care of ourselves and we burn out. And if we burn out, our team is not going to have motivation. I think that we forget how influential we are in the organization. Our organization, they see it. They see when you're slowing down. They see when you lose motivation. They see when you're tired or when you're scared. And then they start to reflect and they manifest that feeling. So it's our job to continue to be the best leader possible, but also to ask for help. So I'm so happy that this is a topic, and I think it's going to be a topic that um, the entrepreneurship world is going to continue to expand on.
I was expecting this interview to be a lot shorter, but the conversation is just so beautiful. Maybe two more questions if you have time.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
do you believe you have work-life balance given all the traveling you're doing, all the public speaking you're doing, the fact that you're running an early stage technology company, married as well,
Yeah. Um,
and you have OPM now?
the direct answer to that is no. I don't think I have work life balance. Do I think it's important? Absolutely, yes. I think this year has taught me the importance of work life balance and why it's necessary. And my commitment next year actually is to exactly do that. I did 60 plus events this year. I was on a plane almost every single week. I think I had 4 weekends off. And although I don't regret a single moment of that, I realized that work is not the number one priority. Um, Having a life with your loved ones, your friends, your family, your partner, your spouse, your parents, your siblings, it's or just for yourself, taking a moment for you to take a weekend off and go play golf or go enjoy whatever it is that you enjoy. That is so critical. And I realized this is actually someone at OPM. I won't name who, but he was in my group and he came up to me on the last night and he said, "Sam, you remind me of how I was when I was younger. And I want to give you not advice, but I just want to give you some intuition and thoughts." He said, "Enjoy your life too. Because if you continue to go down this model of hungry, 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 work, 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 no life balance, you'll lose the people that you care about the most, or you will lose yourself. And those two things are very difficult to get back. If you have a missed opportunity in business, it's okay. You'll have more years and you have more days. You can always make more money, but you can't go back and make your relationships and make your friendships and make your moments in life when you're young. You can't make those come back. As I mentioned, you can't buy more time. So, my biggest initiative for next year personally is to have balance, which is why I'm going to be doing half the traveling that I did this year. And I'm going to be committing myself to enjoying the moments of life and recharging. So, am I practicing work life balance this year? No, but I think that person at Harvard OPM entirely changed my perspective of life because I think it's now entirely necessary for us to have balance, not to slow down, but to have balance, and it's so important for us to do so.
And last question to you. Um, what is a leadership belief you once held that you have since outgrown?
A leadership belief that I once had. Oh, I think this is a good question that you should have all the answers. As leaders, everyone kind of visualizes leadership as you should know everything, that you need to decide everything, and that you have to have all the answers. And somewhat of that is true, but I think in today's world, I don't know who it was. Some entrepreneur, it may have been Steve Jobs, and I apologize if I'm incorrect in this, but it was this entrepreneur said that the reason that you hire people isn't to tell them what to do. You hire experts for them to tell you what to do. That's why you hire experts. You don't hire experts so you can tell them what to do. They tell you what to do. And whoever this entrepreneur was, uh, entirely has sort of reframed my mindset of what I thought I knew, which was you have to know everything. You have to have all the answers. You have to make all the decisions. No, the brilliance of having a team is for them to guide you, is for them to help you make decisions, is for them to be leaders with you, not to be followers. It's important to be both leader and a follower. And as an entrepreneur, it's important to be both a leader and a follower. Follow your experts, follow your directors, encourage them, and allow them to make decisions, allow them to have confidence. Because if you feel like you have to, their brilliance will always be diminished. Their brilliance will always be under the table. No, I want them to lead our organization. I want them to be brilliant because if they are, then I don't have to be as much. And so that's the biggest thing I've changed is not feeling like I have to have all the answers, not feeling like I have to have all the decisions made. And whenever someone comes to me and says, "Sam, what should we do?" I always ask them, "What do you think we should do?" And more likely than not, their idea is probably the same or almost the same as yours. But guess what happened here? They now feel that they can continue to be creative and think for themselves, which is amazing for your organization. So that's been the biggest thing that I've changed from being a younger entrepreneur to being a little bit older of an entrepreneur is the mindset of you don't have to have all the answers. You can rely and depend on your other experts to help you make decisions.
Sam, thank you. That was incredible. I appreciate the fact that you were able to pack so much wisdom in about 53 minutes.
Well, I
It's better
appreciate the
than reading a book
opportunity.
at some point. And I think there's so many takeaways The listeners are going to be very, very grateful for this conversation and for all the
Well,
bits of wisdom that you've shared.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. So, and I am grateful for you organizing this, and I'm looking forward to hopefully we'll see each other before we head back to campus. We'll have to organize that as we get into early next year. I actually have some travel planned over into your area, so we'll have
Mhm.
to connect. But I'll look forward to continuing the conversation once again, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. See you soon.